All right, what's going on, everybody? Yeah, sorry about the poor lighting, but November's in full swing here in Wisconsin, so sunlight is at a premium. And since I don't really have the necessary funds required for like a premium recording setup, I have to do with what I have for natural lighting, and unfortunately, it's at a premium here. So we're gonna make do with what we have here. I'm doing the webcam thing again today, but I wanted to come back and do another video. I want to keep doing these just to get my thoughts out there. I don't know how many of you care about my thoughts, but the last video did somewhat okay, so here I am back again. And today I wanted to talk about what's missing from today's wrestling games that was there in previous wrestling games and made those so fun. And why do people long for those glory days? And what are those glory days? I want to get into some of that here, so let's start. We got to define what the glory days of old wrestling games were. Now, for different people at different ages, they're going to give different responses, but there is a general consensus that I think people of all ages can come to. So for me, personally, I'm 26 years old here. For me, the glory days of wrestling or wrestling video games, so I guess in wrestling in general, too, I could say that, was probably around the year 99, 2000, 2001, 02, 03 starting to kind of taper off a little bit, but that's the money spot right there for not only the wrestling video games, but like the television product as well. So that's my time frame. So let's talk about the games that were released during that time. You got WWF WrestleMania and No Mercy on the N64. I made a whole video about my love for No Mercy, the 20-year anniversary. The first WWF SmackDown and SmackDown 2, Know Your Role on the PlayStation, just phenomenal games, a nice alternative. I made a video about the first SmackDown game as well. Love that series as a whole. The next installments in the series, Just Bring It, the first WWF game on the PS2 at all. And a lot of people say a lot of bad things about Just Bring It. I'm very nostalgic about it. It was the first game I got with my PS2, so, and the story mode, albeit was very short, but there was a lot of different paths you could take, and just being able to roam around backstage and stuff, it was a pioneer, you know what I mean? And then some of the animations that were used in Just Bring It would go on to be used in Shut Your Mouth, another great legendary game, and even Here Comes the Pain, those rough animations of people doing promos and stuff. So Just Bring It, great. Shut Your Mouth, great. Here Comes the Pain, phenomenal. Right? Those are all great games. Now, people maybe a little younger than me would say games in the SmackDown vs. Raw series were the best. And there were some good ones. The first SmackDown vs. Raw, was very good. I know some people will hate on the very poor voice acting, but you got to remember that was the first time that a wrestling game attempted to have those voiced over characters like that in that capacity in a full fledged season mode. So the character that you took, of course, didn't have a voiceover. But it didn't take away that much for me personally. It was a great game. Season mode was great. It was just a year, Shut Your Mouth kind of spoiled us by having a 4-year season mode. Here Comes the Pain decided to go to just 1 year, but make it more in depth. I don't know. I like the 4 years. Even though you could argue maybe things get repetitive, but there was enough freedom of choice, I believe, in Shut Your Mouth to justify having it go 4 years. But I'm starting to get off topic here. SmackDown vs. Raw was great. '06 was a step back for me from SmackDown vs. Raw. But I don't know anybody who says SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 is their favorite. But 2007, that was a great game. Great soundtrack, great season mode, graphics. I believe that was the first SmackDown vs. Raw game to hit next gen, on the 360. So that was, I remember just seeing the superstars sweat as the match progressed, and just thinking that was the coolest thing. I was like, that's it. We hit the pinnacle of wrestling presentation in video games. Guys are sweating now. You can actually see it. I'm actually going to shut this window. I don't know how much this camera is picking up from the outside world, but let me shut that. It's winter anyways. What am I doing? But yeah, SmackDown versus Raw 2007, great game. I do know some. I have friends that is their favorite wrestling game of all time. SmackDown versus Raw 2007, just because of the, it came around in the right time in their lives, and that's really what this conversation comes down to. It's what were you playing in the time of your life where you were playing video games most heavily, I guess, or you were most susceptible to being, influenced by. So, SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, great game. 2008, I don't know anybody who has 2008 as their favorite SmackDown vs. Raw game, but it was kind of a buggy game, I remember a little bit. Not in the sense of, like, not in the sense of, like, 2K20 was, WWE 2K20, nothing like that, like crazy hair clipping and ropes not working. I just mean in the sense of the 24/7 mode. You would get emails that were just irrelevant to your storyline, and you just know it was a mistake by the developers putting it in there. And then 2009, 2010, 2011, a lot of Zoomers like those games, and they're okay. But I personally didn't really care for the Road to WrestleMania. But believe it or not, there are games in the 2K series that some people say is their favorite. Now, I don't want to go too hard at these people. I want to keep this, very hate-free. But I just have to say this one thing about people who love the 2K series. Particularly, I see WWE 2K14 is very often called the best game in the series by a lot of young people. And a lot of people love the 2K Showcase mode that was implemented later on in the 2K series. It may have made its first debut, actually, in WWE 13 with the Attitude Era. But I remember 2K14 had the whole WrestleMania thing, right? You could relive all the WrestleManias. I'm just going to say just real quick about those kinds of things, like 2K Showcase mode in general, where if I wanted to relive things that happened in the past and recreate them or whatever, I would just watch the WWE Network, right? I mean, why do I want to replay something I've already seen, And I get that it could be like a nice little history lesson to younger people, a younger audience, and that's great. But that's what the WWE Network is for, is it not? I mean, that's my way of thinking. So I really didn't care for any of the 2K games, any of the showcase modes. Just not my cup of tea. But I can't knock people for loving that game because it was, it came around at the perfect time for them. And if that's all they know, you know what I mean? If they don't know any better, if they never played Here Comes the Pain, if they never played like an engaging season mode, then they don't know what they're missing. So can you really fault them? But anyways, there's a common theme for most of the games that I just listed. And it was that they had engaging season modes. They had branching storylines. Like, your actions mattered in these games. Dating all the way back to No Mercy, where if you won or lost certain matches, the story would be affected. Once they implemented that in a wrestling game, the floodgates opened. You know what I mean? It's just, it was such a great concept. I mean, it was perfect for those wrestling games to actually put yourself in the position of being a WWF superstar, right? You felt like your matches mattered, your choices mattered, and I think for video games as a whole, that's very important. That's one of the most important things to put in an RPG, right? You want to feel in control of your game, of your story. That's why The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is my favorite game of all time, probably. You feel like you have a say in the narrative. And to put that in a wrestling game, you know what I mean? It was huge. So Just Bring It came around, and that wasn't really the same thing as No Mercy, right? Yeah, you had story modes, and if you lost, I mean, certain things would happen. You would go down different. What am I trying to say here? Words. I just can't say words right now. But it had that branching storylines to a degree, right? But then Shut Your Mouth came around and completely just, it was everything that I wanted in a wrestling game at that time. So what I'm basically trying to say here, and don't get me started on Here Comes the Pain, but what I'm basically trying to say here is, for me personally, that's what I look for in a wrestling game, right? So if you're looking at wrestling games for a different reason, just strictly gameplay, a lot of games that I just mentioned would probably still be your favorite in the series, right? Because No Mercy is still, there are still tournaments at my local video game store. Granted, because of COVID and stuff, it's not happening too much now, but like a year ago this time, there were tournaments being held for WWF No Mercy just because it's so fun, and to this day, it's held up 20 years later. The gameplay is just superb, second to none. People still play that game because of the gameplay, and I like it for the gameplay, of course, but that's not the main reason why I like it. I like it for the story mode, for the championship mode. So for a game to be known and appreciated for multiple facets that's what makes a game superior. That's what makes a game number one. That's what gives a game legendary status. And that could be said for SmackDown Here Comes the Pain as well, right? Some people just love the grapple system in that, which I do, of course, as well, but I love it primarily for the season mode, and I know a lot of other people do too. Game like Shut Your Mouth, and this is why Shut Your Mouth isn't held in as high regard as the previous two titles that I just mentioned, is because while, yes, it was very innovative and it was a pioneer, people just really appreciate the story mode, the season mode of it, which I do, and nobody really likes the gameplay as much as they like No Mercies and Here Comes the Pain. They think it's too arcade-like, too fast-paced, and it is, but I actually like the gameplay quite a bit, but people will knock it for being simplistic and too arcade-like, and so I get that, and that's why you don't hear Shut Your Mouth talked about in as high regard as Here Comes the Pain or No Mercy. And that's fair, right? That's a fair point. But that's basically the point I'm trying to make here. 2K14 or SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, I mean, they're not... You know what I mean? I mean, what is the big deal about those games? The road to WrestleMania is meh. The gameplay is meh. Once next gen hit, like the 360 and PS3 titles, I feel like the gameplay became so clunky and slowed down. And I get they were trying to go for more of a simulation-based style, right? But there is a fine line between simulation and fun. Yes, you want to emulate reality, but you don't want to sacrifice what makes a video game fun in the process, right? And nowadays, in the year 2020, going on 2021, the product in the ring isn't reflected properly in the video games because the product in the ring is very fast-paced now. With all these high-flying and great technical wrestlers that we have in the WWE now, it's just not... The video games are not a good representation of it because they are slow, they are clunky, they're just not where the product is. And maybe when 2K comes back, gameplay will be fixed, and they'll have a good season mode and we can get back on track of wrestling games being great. But I personally have not played a truly great wrestling game in at least 13 years, right? Maybe more. So I'm hurting. That's why I make these videos, so I can kind of relive those glory days. But I want to know what some of your favorite wrestling games are and why are they your favorite wrestling games. I'm very interested to hear that. Let me know in the comments. I would love to engage in some conversation about this. Please talk to me about wrestling. Please talk to me about wrestling. I don't have many people I can talk to about this stuff, let alone wrestling games. So any wrestling game historians out there been playing as long as I have, please let me know. Please talk to me so I stop making these videos talking to myself. Alright guys, hopefully I get better lighting in the near future. I just wanted to come on here and talk about, what's missing in wrestling games today. A good story, engaging combat, and what made the wrestling games of the past so great. So, did I make my point, or did I just ramble here for I don't know how long this has been? Whatever. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, I'll catch you next time on the lab.